You're listening to episode 121 of Present Moment. Welcome to Present Moment, Mindfulness, Practice, and Science. I'm Ted Meissner. Present Moment is a podcast with interviews, conversations, and roundtable discussions. We speak with mindfulness researchers about their newest findings published in peer-reviewed science journals, teachers about their understanding and methods as they work with students of mindfulness, authors about their books and interests, and we also speak with everyday practitioners. The website presentmomentmindfulness.com has show notes for each episode along with resource materials. Deborah Salazar Shapiro joins us to speak about her 2018 Parent and Teacher Choice Award-winning children's book, Magical Mindful Day. If you're listening to this podcast and find value and insights from what is shared here, know that this is made available from your generosity and the generosity of others like you. I want to thank those of you who are making monthly donations to keep this podcast going. And if you're not yet, please take a moment, go to presentmomentmindfulness.com and click on Make a Donation. One-time or especially monthly donations show you value this work, which can't happen without you. Thank you for your help, your support, and your kind generosity. One of the most encouraging aspects of the mindfulness movement to me is the increasing availability of children's books, introducing this way of meeting the world with kind awareness. Concepts or practices that can be difficult for adults may be more accessibly explained for minds not yet awash with the deep grooves of habit patterns, and it's hoped can lead to a life where unhelpful and untrue judgments and biases are less likely to form a solid grip, or may be prevented altogether. Deborah Salazar Shapiro is a psychotherapist, mindfulness teacher, author, and artist who has been working with children and families for more than 15 years. She is an instructor of the mindfulness-based stress reduction course developed by Jon Kabat-Zinn and completed training as a mindfulness facilitator at the University of California, Los Angeles Semel Institute for Neuroscience. Deborah has studied meditation for almost a decade with various Buddhist teachers in the U.S. and recently in Myanmar. She earned a master's degree in social work from the University of Southern California and a master's level degree in psychology from the University of Dr. Jose Mateus Delgado in her native San Salvador in El Salvador. Our guest today is Deborah Salazar Shapiro. Deborah, thank you so much for being here. Very glad to have you on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Ted. This is truly an honor and a treat. I am really honored, so thank you. Very excited.
So let's begin by having you tell us about your background with mindfulness and perhaps experience you may have in working with children.
Mm-hmm. So before I start with mindfulness, I would like to speak a little bit about, I think, the journey into how I ended up with mindfulness. I think that's what you would like to hear. I grew up in El Salvador, and I was 8 years old when I decided I wanted to be a psychotherapist. I was at that age, it's a long story, but we moved to Mexico due to war when I was 5 years old, and my family, so there was my mother, my father, and the three of us. And then 3 years later, we came back. Only my mother and I came back to El Salvador. So they separated. And I turned 8 when I moved to El Salvador. So I was going through a lot of, I can really call it suffering. It was very, very hard for me not to be with my father or see my family broken. And I just started noticing a lot of things around my peers, and I always thought a lot. I had engaged in a lot of thinking and why people is sad and so many things. So I said, and I met a psychologist at my school who helped me. She gave me, I guess, a therapy session. She just called me to her office and she asked me, "Are you doing well?" And I'm like, okay, I don't recall exactly, but I remember how touched I was by her presence and her willingness to help me. So then I decided I want to do this. So I became a psychologist in El Salvador, and at the time I started learning about different psychotherapy interventions, many that I tried on myself and then with my clients. And I moved to the United States in 1999, and I remember I started a master in social work. And I remember sitting in school and started learning about neurobiology, and I was fascinated. And I learned neurobiology through the work of Dr. Dan Siegel. And I remember thinking, wow, if people knew why we think the way we think and why we are always on guard, and I felt like liberated, like, oh, it's just not me. It is really my brain. And I was just wired to be this way. Can I teach this? So I started learning more and more and more about the brain. And I don't remember how, but I ended up reading a book of Thich Nhat Hanh called Anger. I had difficulty with emotional regulation myself, and anger was a thing that it touched me a lot. And Thich Nhat Hanh he's a poet, and he speaks about mindfulness in such a beautiful way that it really touched me deeply as well.
I had a sneaking suspicion that Thich Nhat Hanh might be part of your background, with your cat being named Tay.
Ty. Yes, that's right. I just wanted to honor him, and I loved the book, and one book turned to another and another, and I ended up also studying at UCLA with Diana Winston. I did a 1-year program, and then I did another year program with them. So one is called mindfulness facilitation training with them. So I studied with Diana Winston and Marvin Belzer, like 2 years in total. Also, I trained in MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction. I amazed by the work of John Kabat-Zinn. I thought, this is genius, how he's worked this, how he created this 8-week program. And I've seen how life-changing it is, and I love learning about it and teaching as well. So that's another piece. And then the other piece that I felt has completed my training so far has been training the compassion cultivation training designed by scholars and psychologists at Stanford University, and now has been acquired by the Compassion Institute. So that's my whole training and in years of retreat and personal development. I love learning, so I can't stop learning. I think this is eagerness of helping others. And children. I love children. When I was in El Salvador, my practices used to be going into orphanages and doing psychological assessments on their development, and And I don't believe here in the States we have orphanages, but there it was just something that touched me also, how this little being's there, and it just really sad. And I also wanted, okay, I want to work with children, and also went into hospitals. A lot of my work was with children. Um, I love how their hearts are so pure and they're so naive. When I was in study in college, I used to be a pre-K teacher aide as well. So I've been with children a lot of time. So not to confuse everybody, but when I moved here again, I started working, and one of my first jobs was to go and do home visits and be with families and children and assess their needs as well. And then when I completed my master's degree, I also in community clinics have worked with a lot of children and families. Children are innately, I think that's the word, mindful. And it's so easy for them to just remind them if they're starting to forget when they start kindergarten or first grade about mindfulness, how to be in nature. And so I love doing that. Children, I have a 3-year-old, so I have to say that. So she is always reminding me what is to be mindful at that age. So I think my desire to be connected with children is that it's the energy, or just to observe them and just remember, oh, I can be like that too. So
an active practice of that attribute of mindfulness, that attitude of beginner's mind. And
yes.
sometimes called child's mind, as you know.
I love that. Yes.
So I wonder if you might shift a little bit, and thank you for that background about the idea for your book. Where did that come from on all of that experience with working with children and mindfulness? Have you always wanted to write a book for children, or is that something that just came about one day?
No, I never thought about writing a children's book. Now that I see what it takes, I have a lot of respect for everybody who's in the writing. And wow, no, I never thought about it. I have also a teenage daughter, and when she was in middle school, I was a team, what is it called, PTA chair of a green team. So at the same time, I was studying mindfulness, and so I was teaching children about how to care for the environment. And I thought, wow, I realized, wow, children really, they're just taught to put the to recycle, or let's do this, but I don't think they have this understanding why to do it. So I thought, oh, I'm going to write this. And one day I sat and I wrote a story, but I put it away. I felt I wasn't ready. I didn't know enough. I guess a lot of insecurities is just tough. So I put it away. And I've had the opportunity of travel around the world and in seeing different countries how there's so much trash and not a lot of care for the environment. I remember I was in a ferry on my way to an island in Tanzania called Zanzibar, and I was so happy there. And I just had also been in what do you call it when you see the wild animals? Safari.
Safari, yep.
And just being with the animals, I felt like I was 4 years old, like 4 or 5. I was like, the tiger, look at the cheetah. It was just one of the best. I think it was my happiest memory I ever had. Like, seeing a wild animal is just beyond compare for me. And I love animals. Okay, so I have to say that. So I remember being in that ferry and seeing people throwing trash in the ocean, and I'm like, oh, I was like, oh no. And then I thought about the story. I'm like, oh, okay, but I don't think I can. And then I remarried, and I had this baby called Ariana. It's a little girl. She's already 3.5. And I was nursing her one day, and I had a bookcase, and I was looking at all the books, and uh, what can I read to Ariana that teaches her about mindfulness, but also about caring about the environment and about interconnectedness, how we're all one. And um, I thought, okay, this is the time. I think I'm going to do this. And I did it. And I wrote the book. And in the process, I she not only was my model, but she also asked her, Ariana, do you like this? What do you think about this? This is so young, but mindfulness is so natural for her now. And then we have a group of friends with a lot of children, and what do you think about this animal? And many, many things like that, and other school age children as well, asking them questions about what do you think? And the cover, I think you've seen the cover. I love the ocean. I grew up in El Salvador, and we visit the ocean like every weekend. Like it's just I think we do. And now I live in San Diego, close to the ocean as well. And so I'm very in touch with the ocean. But also the book talks about other type of animals and other settings.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the book itself, what's in there. You had great consultation from your experts, Deborah. And so what's the storyline? Tell us a little bit more about the book itself.
Yes. So the story is about a little girl named Gabby who goes to the beach with her mother and meets a little kitty named Oreo, who teaches her about mindfulness. Yes, and cats don't like the water, but this cat is very special, and he likes the water. And he takes her into a journey, but it's her self-discovery about what is mindfulness, paying attention, what's inside of you and around you, and just being okay with it. And the book talks a little bit about the things that she does at home to care about the environment. And Oreo tells her that that's part of being mindful, right? And she goes within her imagination through a journey visually about what it feels to be held by the earth and the senses. And how one of my favorite illustrations is the cover, but how she discovered that she is the wave, but I am the wave and the wave is in me also. So this theme about interconnectedness. And then also I guess she says that green mangoes are her favorite mangoes. She shares that about it in there. In Salvador, we grew up eating mangoes. So there's a little bit about my culture in here. So it's just special. And she realizes how also we're interconnected by the way other beings, other also human beings, bring things to them. We have things on our table. So this is through this, I love green mangoes, and my mom says that the sun, the rain, the moon, and this is the piece of Tignahan that I love, helps the mango tree grows big and strong. So those are one of the lines. So that discovery too, and also she learns that being mindful means also caring and being kind to other beings. So that's part of the journey that she goes through. Very important about kindness, and also help her realize that setting an intention is important. So she sets an intention to be kind and to be mindful, to help the earth, but also to to be kind with others. Something very, very important for me to wanted to pass down to children about how being kind, and it really is a choice. We make a choice, and we can set an intention to focus more on the good things, right? Kind and being kind and compassionate. So,
What I like about what you're describing here is that mindfulness is not in any way a retreating or a pulling back or navel gazing. It's really opening up and deepening that connection that's already there, whether one chooses to really see the connections between oneself and others, or our environment and the rest of the world and the beings that populate it, or even just the processes around us of sunlight nurturing the plants that we consume and the rest of it. So I really appreciate that you've brought this all together for children in showing them and how it affects them in their hearts as well, and having a lesson of an intention to be more kind and noticing that. Sounds wonderful. So I'm curious, Deborah, what's the response to the book been like, and what's that been like for you?
well, the response has been great. I have self-published this book, so that means that I'm doing most of the work to promoting and selling the book. But one thing that I feel very grateful is having the support of teachers who have recommended the book and sharing about it. For example, someone like you who kindly invite me to your podcast. So that helps a lot. These topics are new and for some people. And what I would like to see is people that don't know about mindfulness to learn about the book. And that's why I'm working and traveling. I am going to Tennessee in a couple weeks, and I was just so excited. I've never been to Tennessee, and I'm going to be on TV and radio. And how exciting to bring mindfulness to Tennessee. I've also had interviews with Latin American channels because the book is also available in Spanish. So it's great, and it has given me opportunity to write more, write in English and share about the book itself, but also about the story, how it came about. So a lot of opportunities, and like I mentioned, it's just a vision, I guess, a dream that children, not only through my book, because it's not the only one available, there's wonderful, beautiful mindfulness books right now, just to learn about kindness and compassion. That's my goal. And regarding specifically my book is to care more about the environment, to plant that seed, because animals are suffering by our carelessness or forgetting about things. A lot of plastic around in the ocean. We've seen it on the news, and it's just heartbreaking how we're sharing our earth with them. And that is what I would love to see, just to share more about mindfulness as a way of connecting with ourselves, understanding our interconnectedness with others, and how everything we do affect others, including the little ones or the other animals, right?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. For those who are listening, you can find out more about Deborah and her work at the website themagicalmindfulday.com. And of course, I'll be linking that on the episode page for this episode, as well as a link to the book itself. And you'll be able to get that there. Deborah Salazar Shapiro, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate our time with you today.
Thank you. I feel a lot of joy for this opportunity. It's just been a treat. Thank you so much, Ted.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like to hear more about something you've heard in today's podcast, please come visit the website at presentmomentmindfulness.com. You'll find an entire webpage devoted to this and every episode. You can comment on the episode page and find show notes and other helpful resources for your mindfulness practice. The shakuhachi music heard on Present Moment is used by permission and through the generosity of musician Rodrigo Rodriguez. His website is linked on the Present Moment website on the About Podcast Music page. Sound editing, mixing, and mastering provided by the generosity of Anthony Dominello of StructureFromSound.com. Until next time, remember, every moment you have a choice. Make it the best you can. See you next time on Present Moment.